Amissah-Arthur, born April 29, 1951, was an economist, academic and politician who was the 6th Vice President of Ghana, in office from August 6, 2012 until January 7, 2017, under President John Dramani Mahama. Previously, he was governor of the Bank of Ghana from 2009 to 2012. He was sworn in as Vice President on August 6, 2012, following vetting by Parliament, a week after Mahama himself was sworn in. This followed the sudden death of John Atta-Mills on July 24, 2012. Amissah-Arthur was a research assistant at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research between 1974 and 1975. He later joined the economics department as a teaching assistant from 1977 to 1978, going on to become an assistant lecturer in 1979. He lectured at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana between 1980 and 1988. He had also been a lecturer at the Department of Economics, Anambra State College of Education, Awka, Anambra State, Nigeria, from August 1981 to July 1983. He went into politics until 1997. He worked as a consultant for the World Bank in the Gambia. He also served as a consultant for the Netherlands Government Education Project in Ghana.
That is a profile of former Vice President Amissah-Arthur. It's been a very difficult and gloomy day for Ghanaians as we were all greeted early this morning with a shocking announcement of the sudden death of the former Vice President. Mr. Arthur died this morning at the 37 Military Hospital after he is reported to have collapsed at the airport gym. The former governor of the Bank of Ghana became Vice President, as you may have already heard, upon his appointment by former President John Dramani Mahama, and was subsequently vetted by Parliament and later sworn into office. You've seen a bit of that already. We'll move ahead with the rest that there is to show you. Already tributes have been pouring in since morning. We'll hear some of them in a short while. But before then, the family has issued a statement, and this is what that statement says. It's titled Sudden Demise of Former Vice President, and it reads, "With deep regret, we announce the sudden demise of the immediate past Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Amissah-Arthur, in Accra this morning. The family is grateful for the outpouring of love and support in this moment of grief. In due course, the family will keep the public informed of the funeral arrangement. Respectfully, we wish to request that the media gives the family some privacy in these very difficult times." It was signed by Amissah-Arthur for the family. We can now hear some of the tributes from notable persons who went to his house today. My colleague Emefa Apau was at the residence of the former Vice President, where a number of NDC bigwigs have been to commiserate with the family. Former Finance Minister Seth Tekpe, brother of late President Samuel Atta-Mills, former Attorney General Betty Modidrisu, Kesalato Forsen, and others have all been there. We can hear from Emefa now.
Well, it was a shock. I couldn't believe it, because I had spoken to him barely a week before I traveled. We sat together, relaxed. He didn't look like anybody who was. He had actually come from the office, and we sat for over an hour together with Sephora, and we were, discussing all manner of things, because we have had a very long relationship. It's just a big shock. Yeah, it's a loss to the nation, to the party, but to some of us, we've also lost a very good friend and a supporter of our career. Yes.
A good friend. How would he be remembered for you?
After my national service, that's how far back we go. I was recruited to work at the then National Revenue Secretariat, Revenue Authority. He was then a deputy minister. And so that was when I got into public service. And he had the tax and budget schedule, working closely with Mr. Atuahoy, who was then the PNDC secretary for revenue. That's when our relationship, started. And so as deputy minister, I worked very closely, with him, because we were doing a lot of research back then on the autonomy for the revenue institutions, a lot of tax reforms. The other person was the late Professor Mills, who was then a commissioner of Internal Revenue Service. So this is how far back when I say that he's been a supporter, of, my career. It's very extensive. I recall the day on a Sunday when he came to my house. I was with my wife and our firstborn. I had just come back from my postgraduate studies, at Harvard University. And he said, vividly, you have to cash out your leave. You've been appointed the coordinator for the introduction of VAT in Ghana. Can you come to my office on Monday? So it tells you how deep a relationship. The long and short, I came back to the country as deputy minister. He was appointed governor, and as fate would have it, I was the deputy minister on the board of the central bank. In fact, when I was at the IMF, I worked with him. He was then in a small consultancy called Sigma 1. So we kept our relationship through his governorship and as vice president when I became a minister. So Pakwesi, if I should use the way we all called him, is somebody who is very intimate and very personal. To me, a very big supporter, of my career from day one. And even though he was also young at the time, I can say that because of his higher level of education at the time and insight and experience, he was a real mentor in the true sense of the word, and I had become very, very close to the family through him. Coincidentally, his brother Jabesh also became my advisor when I put on the power hat. So it tells you how their sister Cecilia was in customs at the time. We lived together in Sakumono. So on a personal note, beyond knowing him, I've come to know through him his wife Matilda, and so many. So it's a big loss, as I said, to me, personally. The loss of a boss, the loss of a friend, and my, but let me end by saying that he has contributed a lot to the nation on the economic front.
All this contribution, do you think he was celebrated enough?
I had a tribute on the radio this morning, which I think described him well. I can't remember who. That he had a quiet demeanor, but I believe that those who are close to him, know his contribution, to the nation. And I think, as with many things, in death, he would come. Was not acknowledged when he was alive. You can see from what I've said that I was at Legon yesterday to make a presentation. Coincidentally, we were hosted in Amissah-Arthur Hall, and I went back in my delivery. We can see his contribution from the stabilization of the economy from those days, during the structural adjustment days. Thank you very much.
Okay, you had a close working relationship, and I don't know if you have a personal relationship also, but this news about the former vice president's death, how did it come to you?
I had a phone call this morning from Honorable Seth that he's heard the breaking news from Joy FM. So if I can verify, only for me to play some phone calls, and indeed it came to me that the story is true. But I can say that I'm really shocked because we speak quite often, and we are supposed to meet coming Monday for us to discuss issues relating to the management of the economy. Unfortunately, that meeting cannot come on. But I have to say that I'm surprised, and his demise has come to me as a big shock, and indeed I'm troubled.
Memories of him that you are going to hold dear from one. Can you share with us some of these memories?
I think the latest one was when I traveled with him together to Central Region a couple of weeks ago to discuss issues relating to the region. I spent almost 10-11 hours with him that day, and it was really something that I'll forever remember. In fact, it will stay with me for a long time. We had very interesting discussion relating to the running of the political party at the NDC in our region, and issues that we can put together to address some concerns that has recently come up. Apart from that, we discuss issues relating to our families, and how best to not to forget about a family in the midst of very interesting challenges relating to our career. And apart from that, I've personally have very personal relationship with him. He's taking me like a son, a junior brother, and he's been part of those modeling me in my career. And unfortunately, I won't have the privilege to share with him some of the challenges in my life, but that is life. It's very sad, but that's happening.
He was at the wife's book launch on Wednesday afternoon. He seemed perfectly well.
What then would you say would be your fondest memories at this point? I'm sure you had a long relationship and working relationship with him. What would be your fondest memories?
It's only a working, it was a close personal relationship with he and the family. And Marcus, he was just a fantastic gentleman, a brilliant brain, outstanding and humble person. He epitomized all that is finest, I think, in the fancies. He was a true gentleman, true gentleman. Fondest memories of when he was sworn in as vice president of our country. And personally, we were close, and it's been difficult. So I want to thank you all for your concern. Thank you very much.
Together with Arthur Forsin and also. All right, I know how difficult it is for you. I know there's trying times, but really, how did the news get to you? How did it hit you?
I saw it on the net, but there's been a lot of news. Then I looked at my phone and I saw so many missed calls from people who know I'm close to him. And then I called a few people and it became evidence that it was true. And I still don't believe it. I'm still in a shock. I just left the wife. We can only say God knows the best, and we hope he's in the hands of the Lord. Yeah?
But did you get any impression or anything? I'm sure with your last encounter, I don't know when last you spoke to him or encountered him. Were you under the impression that he wasn't well? Was he sick? Did you get any indication?
There's no any indication. His blood pressure. And all of a sudden, one of the security people shouted, "Veep, Veep, Veep," and he fell down. The doctor who looked at him. They said he was fine. They took him to 37. All the doctors were ready for him. They did all the little tests they could do, and they said he will be fine. Half an hour later on, they came back and said he was gone.
We're told he was dead on arrival.
No, he wasn't dead on arrival. It happened about 45 minutes later. No.
So what's next? Where then do we go from here?
Tracy.
Amissah-Arthur there at the residence of the former vice president. Now, there are still a lot of messages. I will go to the central region where Richard Kojo-Nyako has been interacting with family members at the family house. He joins me on the line now. Richard, what can you report from there?
Lucy.
Yes, Richard, go ahead.
Well, we are currently at the family house here at Ola in Cape Coast, where a lot of people are trooping in to commiserate with the family at the former vice president's house. We have seen the mother of the former vice president, Auntie Ife, Amissah-Arthur. In the morning, they didn't want to break the news to her. It was really a difficult thing for them to do because the mother is 90 plus years. And so they envisaged that telling her was going to be a great sort of worry. And so it had to take some diplomacy and tact for some elders of the family, plus some Methodist priests to come to their house to finally break the message to her because they switched off the electricity connection in the house. And so they removed the chip from the phone. They had to also disconnect the TV set and all of that one to prevent her from hearing anything. And so they were preventing other people that had heard the news and were trooping to the family house. But eventually around 12 p.m., they had to finally do that. So the NDC delegation came in. Currently, we have the presiding bishop of the Methodist Church, Titus our Kiprat, plus other bishops because he is a Methodist. They attend the Methodist Church. We also have the Sarkin Zongo, the chief imam of the Central Regional Zongo community. They said that they interacted with him about 2 days ago, and they find a brother in him, and not only a vice president, but they find a brother in him. People have been eulogizing him. They say that he brought some decency into the politics we have because you hardly see him exchanging some words with some. If he would disagree with you, he will disagree with you politely. And so that's what has been going on throughout the morning. People have been trooping to this house. We first went to Mori, where the larger family is. He comes from Mori, and so he cast his ballot at Mori. About a week ago, he came there when there was this constituency elections. He first went to the Cape Coast South constituency where the elections were being held at the Center for National Culture. He spoke with the people. Other people also took photographs with him because in a long while they took selfies with him, and he went to speak at the the delegate conference that was ongoing there. He spoke about party unity, the fact that they really had to rally their support together so that they could annex the seat once again in the and so they find it very difficult to believe that such a man is no more, and it comes to them. It comes to them as a great shock, and they cannot believe their ears.
Richard, thank you very much for that update. Well, Richard Kojo-Nyako there.